UBC studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Good morning and thank you for keeping it on UBC TV. Time check is exactly 10 minutes past the top of the hour, which happens to be 9 a.m. I hope you're at your workstation, and the good thing is wherever you are, you can have us. Simply go on your smartphone and you go on our YouTube channel. You can forward, you can rewind, you can watch any show on UBC at your time of convenience. Well, this very cool morning, I'm honored and privileged to be hosting a team of people who are behind an event that is coming up and we believe is going to transform the economy of this country, because it has a connection with faith. You know, these days I don't use the word religion, I use the word faith, because you have faith-based institutions that bring together all these other faiths that we have here. And we are going to be discussing, that is the Religion and Enterprise Summit and Business Fair of 2022. Now, two words here are very interesting. There is the word religion and the word business. Many times people, we grew up knowing that these two don't meet. There's nothing that brings that two. Because one would tell you, people in business, they are crafty, they are this, they are that, and maybe we thought religious leaders also have their role. But also, we need people of integrity, God-fearing people in the business world. And let me introduce to you the panel that I have here, or the guests I have, which is, I must say, a multi-sectoral approach that will deliver the desired goals. Beginning with my friend, a person I enjoy so much, many times, though usually there are arguments, keeps on telling me, Chidabo, there's a path you have to take because of your background. Maybe one day I'll get there. That is Reverend Canon Aaron Mwesije, who is the Director for Ethics in charge of Religious Affairs, Office of the President. Reverend Canon, I'm honored and humbled to host you this morning.
Thank you, Robert.
Then on the other end, I have Dr. Fiona Murira, who is a senior lecturer, that is Makerere University Business School. Doctor, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Robert.
And on my extreme end is a gentleman smartly dressed in black, and that is Dr. Emmanuel Day Tuni. You're most welcome, Doctor, to our studios.
It's an honor to be here. Very great to be here.
Yes. Well, I'll start with Reverend Canon. Reverend Canon, when we see these two words come together for a summit, one thing that comes to my mind, where do the two cross paths? How do they come together? You know, one time, but of course I got clarification. Some people believe that being poor takes you to heaven, you know? And we used to think that people in faith are usually, there's poor. Today things could have changed. So why is the connection of business and religious leaders?
Thank you so much, Robert. Good morning, everyone. Now, Robert, you're asking a very fundamental question, and I think that is where the niche is as far as the upcoming summit is concerned. First of all, as you said, that you used to hear that blessed are the poor, but that is, the context is that blessed are the poor in spirit, not blessed are the poor in body. So the body must be, you must feed it, you have to clothe it. The body needs a lot, and you cannot feed the body, you cannot clothe the body, you cannot even do anything without money. Because whether people like it or not, and in the past, of course, as you rightly said, that belief in the past society was not like as it is. Things have changed. We are in advanced technology. People have to make money, and if you don't want to change, the change will change you. But the Bible goes ahead, which you are quoting, to say that, I think the Bible says that God does not want people to become so rich. I think it is in Proverbs, to actually deny his name or
continue, Doctor.
to become disobedient because of their richness, but also it doesn't also allow people to become poor, so that they actually they make his name very. I don't know how to put it, Fiona. You know that verse which says you should not be rich, because when you become rich, then the name of the Lord, you not actually you not praise the Lord as it should be, because you concentrate in all your riches, but you should not also be poor. So, but just in the poverty is actually evil. Is something that is evil. It is not a good thing, even as far as the Bible is concerned. You should not be poor, because when you are poor materially, you can end up being tempted, you can end up being enticed to do evil things. And I have seen so many Christians committed, Muslims who are very committed, but because of poverty, they end up doing wrong things. And in fact, the issue of corruption that you are talking in the whole country, in Africa and in Uganda, there is corruption of greed, but at the same time, there is corruption of need. So there are those who are in need and they end up corrupt. But then there are those who are greedy, who have a lot, and they end up. So you see the two lines, see? Poverty and riches. When you are too rich, sometimes you forget the name of the Lord. You know that what drives you are your riches. But also being poor is very dangerous sometimes, because you may end up doing wrong things and being tempted and enticed. So this summit, the upcoming summit, first of all, I want to tell you that it is the first one of its kind in Africa, not in Uganda. But the dream begins in Uganda. The convener, who is part of us here, of this group, is going to explain the genesis of this summit, Dr. Emmanuel. But I want to tell you that it begins in Uganda. It's a dream. Ugandans have not actually even understood it, maybe because of poor dissemination of information, but that is why we are here in UBC and want to thank you. This is something to say that people who are Christians, who are Muslims, who are believers start business, but then when they start business, their businesses collapse. They are not sustainable. But there are those who are religious, like in the Muslim world. If you go Uganda, United Arab Emirates world, you know, they are religious, but they are very successful. So what is the magic behind that? Can't we adopt the same magic? Africa south of the Sahara, especially, which is predominantly Christian, it's the poorest. That is where the poorest of the poor is. Now, are the two faces related? Christian and poor, or poverty? So should Christians be poor? So that is why we are saying, if it is yes, then we go ahead and say yes, and if it is no, that is why we want this summit to pronounce its position, to say, we put our heads together and say, why are people poor? They have to take their children to school, they fall sick, they want to go to hospital. Most end up in the president's office to seek for assistance, is either for fees or for hospital facilitation. But you can make a small business, an SME, and it succeeds. So the whole thing is that how can people who are God-fearing, driven by God-centered values, start business and sustain it?
Well, this brings me to Dr. Emmanuel, driven by God-centered values. That is another hard statement. God-centered values. Many people believe that successful business people, a faith or religion, could be an hindrance. I remember when I was growing up, I had stories, and they told me of this East African revival. I know Reverend Cannon is aware of it. I happened to grow up with grandparents that were in the East African revival. And one of the things these people had, I remember very well, they would never borrow. They would never borrow. Am I deceiving?
No.
They would never. They don't go to banks. They don't get money from anybody.
They don't get loans.
They don't get loans. And I see business today entirely thrives on loans. But of course, Let me, okay, that's a soft ground. I don't, not many are still in that revival, the Baroko Abazukufu
Yes.
Reverend. Today, so much has happened. But Dr. Emmanuel, you're the brain behind this. What do you intend, or what came to your mind that you wanted to address where we see business and religion, this summit that is going to be the first of its kind in Africa, like Reverend Cannon said?
Thank you, Robert. And let me say it's an honor to be here in UBC. It's a great privilege, and I don't take it for granted at all. And I want to say a very big thank you both to Reverend Cannon for making this possible, and also for all the leadership in UBC for the work that you guys are doing. Now, the answer to your question is going to be both spiritual but also physical. In 2015, the Lord spoke to me, and when I say the Lord spoke to me, I think I need to explain that, because those who are not Christians or who are not spiritually filled will misunderstand it. God impressed in my spirit and in my heart that the world is going to gravitate towards Africa, and it's going to start from Uganda. I had not been to Uganda before. All I knew about Uganda was Idi Amin. So the long and short of it is that I came here on assignment. Now, to get back to the question as to the relationship between religion and enterprise. Now, Robert, you need to understand that in every society, in the whole world, the world stands on 7 pillars, which is key. Family, culture, education, governance, business, and forgotten the last one, but 7 of them. Now, if you look at the nexus, the connecting line that connects all these 7 pillars is enterprise, which is more about finance. Now, but you realize that of all the major religions in the world, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Judaism, almost all of these are doing extremely well because they have business models that guide the operations of their businesses, except Christianity. Even though every principle in business is traceable to the Bible. Abraham was a businessman.
Correct.
Joseph was a businessman. Isaac was all of them were business people.
Jesus was a carpenter.
Jesus was a carpenter's son. Now, but you come to realize that in Africa, where we are saying that the most religious continent in the world, we are populated by either Islam or Christianity. However, Africa is also largely the only continent where SMEs don't thrive. So the question is why? And if you look at business, I'm glad that Dr. Fiona is here. I teach entrepreneurship as well. The success of every business is traceable to the value system of the entrepreneur. That's how the culture is formulated around. So the question is, why come Christians that have, or let me say, who are the owners of the principles, don't do well in business? This is where the Religion and Enterprise Summit is emanating from. So we want to interrogate, what can we learn from the Asians, the Hindus, the Indians, for example? We have Islamic banking, for example. There's no Christian bank. Maybe in Uganda you have Centenary Bank, but we cannot even say that's a Christian bank. So what can we learn from these other religions that are making them thrive? If we take the Hindus, the Indians, for example, all over Africa, they are dominating. Talk about industry, talk about manufacturing. They are doing very well. We cannot talk about any particular sector that we can say this is dominated by Christianity, or for that matter, by specific religion. This is where we are going to discuss the summit. So we are starting from Uganda because that is what God led me to be. And it's interesting that when I came to Uganda, that time COVID had not come. But when I came to Uganda and after COVID and all the happenings, I realized how important this country is. Uganda is one of the most fertile lands in the whole world. In Ghana, there was a time we used to pray and fast for rain. In Uganda, you don't pray for rain. In fact, as we are sitting here right now, there was no cloud. You'll be surprised that when we step out here, it can start raining. You plant anything here, you crack this cement and put anything there, it will give you food. Now, number 2, East Africa as a region is so rich, and with this DRC, Congo coming to be part of ECA, makes you the richest region in the entire whole world. So God couldn't have gone wrong by asking me to come to Uganda to start this enterprise and religion here. And surprisingly, even though this is the first part, you'll be surprised to know how many important speakers and panelists are coming from the rest of the world who are going to be part of here this coming weekend as we are starting.
Well,
so this is where we are. This is what
thank you for not being a Jonah who was sent to Nineveh and he ended up in a fish's stomach. So, well, thank you, Doctor, for listening to the voice of God. Well, this brings me to Dr. Fiona. Many people are now interested. They have heard and they know that this is the right path. We should, as Christians, wake up onto this. But I believe you're one of the people that are going to be presenting in this, this forum. So what are some of those areas that you've drawn interest to or you see urgent need for Ugandans to know, to understand?
Thank you very much, Robert. So part of the research that I'm going to be presenting about looks at religion, and then it looks at the small and medium-sized enterprises. And the case we look at is the informal sector. Honestly speaking, in Uganda, the informal sector plays a big role. So if you ignore the aspect of the value systems that is talked about and the role they play in that informal sector, then we won't see that informal sector grow. Quite often, we've found that, for instance, business owners, especially in the informal sector, their ability to identify opportunities within the economy rely on a belief system. For some people, they'll say that, I heard God say this. The word of God says that he has given us the power to make wealth. And because of that, I'm going to venture into such and such a business. For others, religion plays a role in how they are going to run the business, in as far as their morals, who they are going to engage, who they are going to hire. The hiring systems quite often depend on who do you believe in, what is your faith, as you had mentioned. And still, when it comes to the informal sector, quite often you'll find that whether it's churches, regardless of the religion, whether it's Christians, whether it's Muslims, sometimes even traditional believers, many times an entrepreneur, an individual entrepreneur will decide that my success or my failure is because of religion. Now, what's interesting is he's given an example. Any business to thrive has to have an aspect of trust. And religion plays a very key role when it comes to trust. If I lend you, you talked about the loans. If I lend you this money, are you going to pay it back? How long are you going to pay it back? When I'm putting an interest, what is the intention? Is it to build you up or to bring you down and take over your business? So we cannot ignore the role that religion actually plays in small, medium, and micro enterprises, the role it plays in the informal sector, to know that quite often, for some, their visions are actually based on their belief system. The vision that I craft for my business, what I have on my logo. And unfortunately, once in a while, the intention would be to attract a particular group of people, a particular belief system. So that is part of what I'm going to be talking about, how individual entrepreneurs are able to either identify opportunities, take advantage of those opportunities because of their faith, and how some of them might fail because of their belief systems as well. Yes.
Well, I've heard so many people, religion being a reason for why they fail. Someone tells you, well, I can't engage in this business.
Yes.
You know, you're like, well, why don't you have a luxurious park here? You know, people come, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian.
Yes.
When people come here, they will dance, they will play music, they will do this. That is against my values. Like, but
They will adulterate
my premises. it's like they will infect them with a disease.
That's true.
So he feels like, no. Yet you're having a place where you only think people should only come and pay and pray. So some of these issues, but we will be going for a very short commercial break, and our viewer, when we return, we will be still discussing more regarding the religious and entrepreneurial business summit that's going to be a 2-day event, and I hope you do not miss. Well, when we return, we shall get to know more about that, of course, how one would participate and the details. I still have Reverend Canon, that is Aaron Mwesije, and I have Dr. Emmanuel De Tumin, who is also, that is the President, Human Capital International, and Dr. Flavia Murira, that is from Dr. Fiona Murira, that is from Makerere University Business School, with whom we'll be deliberating more. It is the first of its kind. I'm sure you must be excited to know how you move forward and what have been the encumbrances in your business. We'll return shortly.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Simply make a small deposit of 99k and pay the balance mpola. You can pay in daily, weekly or even monthly installments while you enjoy your new phone. So what are you doing today? Visit any MTN shop near you and get the MTN cupboard. That's super easy.
We bring you a fresh, well-researched program to help you identify opportunities for investment, job creation, growing your entrepreneurial skills, wealth creation, and social transformation.
We have a product that is ready for schools, supermarkets.
Create wealth, transform livelihoods. Every week, we showcase opportunities for creating new products and services.
I now harvest a lot of cocoa. When I harvest it, I sell. After selling, I put money in my project. I have 2 projects. 1 is for construction of my house, 2 is for educating my children.
Excellence in innovation, the passion and drive to succeed, and the right mindset to grow your business. Create wealth, transform livelihoods. Brought to you by Operation Wealth Creation.
National Council for Higher Education will hold the 4th Annual Higher Education Conference on the 14th and 15th September 2022. The conference theme is Enhancement of Teaching, Learning and Assessment with Ordeal in Higher Education. The guest of honor will be the First Lady and Minister of Education and Sports, Honorable Janet Kataha Museveni. The conference will be held physically at Hotel Africana for only invited guests and open to online participants via Zoom webinar that will be shared under the events section at www.unche.or.ug. The keynote speakers are Ezra Nazim, Senior Fellow of Higher Education Academy UK, Professor Henk Gerald Sola, a Dutch organizational theorist and Emeritus Professor of Business, Engineering and ICT at Groningen University, the Netherlands. The National Council for Higher Education is receiving papers from researchers and scholars for publication in the Uganda Higher Education Review, Journal of National Council for Higher Education. For more details, send inquiries to cmuhumuza@unche.or.ug, info@unche.or.ug, or call 0783 04 0024 or 0704 80 0926 plus 256 39 32 62 140/4.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. Thank you so much for keeping it with us. It is still Good Morning Uganda Extra, an extension of Good Morning Uganda. I'm Robert Chirabonyonyitono, and I have a team of able people to discuss the topic of the day, which is the upcoming summit that is on religion and business. And this is going to start on Friday, this very, very Friday. It's when it's starting, the first of its kind in Africa, with the aim of ensuring that we merge these two for better prosperity. You're still faithful in your faith, but also know, how do you be part of business? How do you do business? Quoting Reverend Canon Mwesije, who said, basing on godly principles. How do you remain? We move away from this belief that someone, a good Christian, is that one maybe who doesn't own a lot of property. Because when you do business, you lose your integrity, you are against your Christian norms and values. Well, this is what this conference seeks to address. And also better lift others that are struggling with the mixture of the two. And this brings me back to Reverend. Looking at the theme, Reverend Canon, the theme of this summit, which is entrepreneurial transformation through faith-based innovation, trade, and technology. Expound more on this.
Thank you so much, Robert. First of all, I want to begin with the words of Martin Luther King Jr., who said that our lives begin to end the moment we remain silent on things that matter. And that is why Dr. Emmanuel, I think in his own wisdom and led by the vision from God, said that enough is enough. Doors must be opened. Governments have done a lot of work. In our current situation in Africa, there's a lot of innovation, there's a lot of technology, but hardships still remain. And as you know, you are Ugandan. Uganda government has put in place so many strategies and measures to defeat poverty right from its inception. You know, talk about youth unemployment. We have so many strategies, you know, youth livelihood funds, skilling Uganda, Emyoga, and so on. But the hardships still remain. So we are saying now at this time, wait a minute. We have churches that have structures, we have religious institutions that have structures right from the bottom up. You see? So can't we use this bottom-up approach to make sure that we empower the people with the small businesses? That is why our target is SMEs, small medium enterprises, so that one begins a business and sustains it. And with honesty, because why are we using religious people? We know that as far as religious people are concerned, Christians or Muslims, these are people who are actually honest, people who are trustworthy. We believe they are people who are transparent. We believe that they are people who practice accountability, and those are what I may call non-tangible assets. You see, when you talk of rebuilding the moral infrastructure of this country, you are talking moral infrastructure means non-tangible assets, and non-tangible assets are self-control, honesty, integrity. Those are non-tangible. But using non-tangible assets to produce tangible assets. So that we are saying that is the innovation. We need to wake up and become innovative. We need to think outside the box as churches. Actually, not only thinking outside the box, but we need even to think new boxes. I think we need to think new boxes. As churches, we wake up. That's why we are talking of innovation, because when you become innovative, you just don't sit down and remain in your silos. And I want to tell you that in some churches across, few actually, not many, and religious institutions, some people have started businesses in circles, which I know. Some of them are going to be giving testimonies in that summit, bishops. Some who have started their circles and they have become successful, so that they want to tell a story, how it has worked. But why is it that the majority are still poor? Especially we are talking, my whole target are the youth, because about 80% of our population is youth. And they are underprivileged. They finish university, they have nothing. And we know that government cannot employ all its citizens, but want these people to be armed. So we as the mothers, the churches are mothers, they are fathers, we nurture. We empower people with integrity. We empower people with honesty. People become born again. You know, if you go to the developed world, it's developed, although it's in quotes, because it depends on what development entails. But the so-called developed world, as far as IMF and World Bank is concerned, you look for a born-again person on the street, you not get him, by the way. It's hard. You go to Uganda or to Ghana or to Nigeria or to Kenya, so many born-again people singing. Many churches have grown. You know, a lot of churches, I'm the director for religious affairs. If you ask me how many churches we have in Uganda, I can't tell you. We are at the moment actually trying to establish a database. How many churches we have in Uganda, how many mosques.
So we are more religious.
Many churches have been established. The message preached is prosperity gospel, but people are still poor. So what is the problem? And that is why we say we need faith-based innovation, technology, to drive society further. And of course, we are not divorcing ourselves from. We want to enhance what is there on ground, and we want to enhance even our collaboration and partnership with the government. What the government does, so also churches do. But government, we must add what I may call a unique selling proposition in our business, unique in such a way that we offer something different from people who are secular can offer. We do business with integrity. We do business with honesty. We employ people, we provide better services, and we generate income.
I love that, with honesty, and I believe that is one of the virtues that is lacking in our business community today. And that is why one even will tell you, I opt to maybe source outside, because you're telling me, really, we're fine. Why don't you have an expatriate come in? Not because we don't have these people, because we've lacked that honesty, integrity in our business, and we all think, actually, that is one of the things that will sink you instead of promoting you. We don't have those values. And when Reverend Canon, you talk about integrity, that's Christian-like way of doing things, then really that impresses me. Now, Dr. Emmanuel, this is an international conference, the first of its kind. Who are some of those keynote speakers that we expect to have, and what are some of those topics they may be touching, if you're privileged to know?
Right. Let me go back to the first issue you raised about the theme, which is entrepreneurial transformation through faith-based innovation, investment, trade, and technology. These are key concepts that were carefully selected. Now, like Reverend said, you realize that in Uganda here, just like in Ghana, or for that matter, any other African country, if you walk on the streets of our principal streets on Sundays, every place is quiet, and almost every church building is full. Right after church, when you start walking on the street, before they went to church, the streets were clean. Let's put it that way. 30 minutes after churches are closed, you find the place dirty. And the question is, how did the place get dirty? And you realize that it's the same people who went to church who now come out of church, and therefore the place becomes dirty again. So it's almost as if we live one particular life in the church, then after church we live a different kind of life. Now, business, like we mentioned and like Dr. Fiona said, the success of business is based on values. So the main thing we are talking about here is that how do we transform enterprises in Africa using religious values? That's the first thing. Then the whole concept of innovation. I think we have overstretched the concept of innovation from an academic perspective. But in the Bible, the first innovator was God.
Correct.
Was God. Take, for example, Jacob. Jacob was a classic innovator. He went and told his father-in-law that, listen, you want me to take care of your sheep, I don't mind. But since you have cheated me, I'm also going to prove to you that I'm an innovator. So he crafted a tree, changed some things, and then as the sheep came and grazed, they started giving birth. There were speckles. That's innovation. Jesus was an innovator. He said, this is the sea. You can decide to swim across it. You can decide to use a boat across it, but you can also walk on that particular sea. That's innovation. In other words, let's begin to look at the same things we are doing from a different perspective. And that is what we are talking about here. You cannot do business without investment. Nobody would invest in your business if the person is not sure of how his money is going to be protected, so he can have return on that particular investment. And without values, without integrity, that cannot be done. So we are saying that if others have done it in some other religions, what can we also learn from them? Like Reverend said, here in Uganda, there are bishops who have done circles that have grown to become big institutions. What can we learn from them? What did they know that we don't know at a larger session? That is what we are going to be talking about. Take, for example, another issue is trade. Now we are talking about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which makes it easy for entrepreneurs to be able to do intra-trade, across countries. How many religious institutions are even educating their members who are entrepreneurs to know that you just don't have to sit in your room and pray and pray and pray and pray, but expose yourself, network, to know what is happening both at the national level and then at the intercontinental level. Those are some of the things that we are talking about. And it's against that background, or from that standpoint, that we are bringing other speakers, not only from Uganda, but across the continent. So the cabinet minister of Malawi for trade and industry, for example, is flying in to come and share with us how does industries, for example, play a critical role in the transformation of SMEs across the continent. The Honorable Minister for Technology Information here, Dr. Monica, is also going to be speaking. My good friend Chaso Chichi, who is an enterprise development guru in Uganda, is going to be speaking. One of the things we are looking at also is how do we ensure that SMEs in Africa are facilitated by the Pan-African Parliament. So the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament in Ghana is also coming in to come and tell us how African parliaments are facilitating trade across the continent. Now, the Director General, Ghana Revenue Authority, Commissioner General, is also coming to share with us. He's a Reverend Minister, by the way. What is the role, for example, of divinity in managing and practicing entrepreneurship in Africa? So these are some of the key things that we are talking about. And here in Uganda, the Archbishop of the Church of Uganda is going to be the official, what we call the chief guest, who is going to set the tone and open it for us to appreciate the fact that indeed religion plays a critical role. And for me, the critical thing I want to say to the young people in Africa is that this is their time. Africa is the youngest continent in the entire whole world in terms of population, in terms of demographics. And if a discussion of this nature is taking place and we say we are religious, this is the time for us to open up and embrace ourselves with some of these innovative ideas that are coming out. Reverend talked about, let's think outside the box. I would say let's think as if there's no box.
Very interesting. This is the time. This is the time for the
yes
new boxes. Okay. Well, I'll bring in Dr. Fiona. Doctor, now it is very exciting. Actually, I'm enjoying, and I would, at all costs, love to be at this summit. But help us understand how is attendance? Is it online, by participation, presence, payment? All these we need to know.
You have to come whether you like it or not.
Thank you very much, Robert. So there are two options. There's the physical attendance, and you have to register, and there's payment. And it's going to be at Sheraton. This is on the 29th, Friday, and on Saturday, the 30th.
2 days.
2 days of discussions, engagement, presentations, interactions, and learning. And then there's also the online option. It's a free option, but you can still register as well. So those are the two main options.
Well, Reverend.
And Robert, if you don't mind, let me add that the payment is not for the summit is free, but the payment is to enable you to have lunch. In other words, because it's a full day session, you're only paying for the food and the refreshment that you are going to be having. That's what it is.
Okay, Reverend Canon, your final remarks regarding this summit.
Thank you so much, Robert, first of all, for hosting us. I think my final remarks is that I want to use the Bible, Genesis 1:28. When God said, multiply, it is not giving birth of children. Increase. So how do you multiply in business? How do you increase the size? so that when you are getting 10% of what other people are getting, you increase to get 100 or 80%. Multiply, subdue, actually those are the words used. Occupy, you see, Napoleon said that, this is what I'm living. Napoleon said that the objective of war is victory. The objective of victory is occupation. I think religious leaders, Christians, Muslims, need to occupy space. We have become Christians and Muslims, but the space is not, we have not occupied. We need to occupy space. We need to be known and to be felt. We need to be involved. We need to take charge of our businesses so that we are not cheated, you see. Instead of saying so-and-so is cheating me, start business, don't cheat. Let other people emulate, because you have started business, yours is very unique, you are doing it with integrity, you are not cheating, and you are getting more customers. You are attracting more customers. There's something unique in your business, what I call a unique selling proposition. Something that sells your business. You offer something unique in your business that other people in a similar business are not offering. Now, but one thing I want to say, that the summit should actually help us as a shopping ground. We are going to shop as religious leaders and as Christians. We go in that summit, we network, we get ideas, we go and start our own businesses. Because one thing I liked from my brother Emmanuel is that he's saying that if other, he said it even at the beginning, if others have succeeded, why not us? Why not us? So I think let's shop from this summit and we discuss. I am encouraging my fellow clergymen and my fellow religious leaders to come and attend and listen, or even identify their parishioners to come and share ideas. The issue of money is not a problem. Actually, this is an international summit attracting the entire Africa, and just paying $100. If you're going for an African or international summit, you pay about $2,000 just on that. But this is just for lunch and refreshments. And since this is the beginning, I can say this is the beginning of the beginning. It is not the beginning of the end, neither is it the end of the beginning. Let's begin well, and we set goals, so that as we go to Zambia, to Malawi, to other African countries, Uganda has a story to tell.
Very interesting, and I love it that it's beginning from Uganda, just like the source of the Nile, for our visitor. All good things begin with us, and please don't just end at the summit, have some time to tour the Pearl of Africa. Well, Doctor, let me have your final remarks, Dr. Emmanuel.
Well, let me address, for example, in my concluding remarks to the younger generation of Africa, starting from Uganda. The world has changed. The world will never be like it used to be. And it is important to remind ourselves that if there has been any time where humanity have had the greatest of all opportunities, it is now. And this summit only sets the pace, is the setting of pace for us to appreciate the principles that would help us to begin to soar in our respective areas. And the beginning start with what we know, which is knowledge. Reverend talked about God said something in Genesis. Be fruitful, multiply, subdue, and replenish. These are business principles.
Exactly.
Business principles. Multiplication means you need to do a prototype, which is your idea. Multiply means multiplication means produce. Your prototype, and then multiply simply means reproduce them. Correct. Then begin to share, begin to market, and then replenish means taking, subdue means taking control. And I want to urge all of us, every one of us have an idea. How do we produce that idea? Multiply it. And the continent is now there through Africa Continental Free Trade Area for us to take dominance. And this is our time. So take advantage of this summit and come and be a part of it so you can live your dream, your business.
Well, this is our time, particularly to the youth. Dr. Emmanuel Deituni has brought that out. But last but not least, the lady, in just a minute, your parting shot, and of course, how people get to register, so that we don't just leave them asking, do I have to look for Reverend Canon, do I have to look for Dr. Fiona, in your concluding remark?
Okay, thank you very much. My conclusion will be a common statement that my pastor has said over and over again, that you see, when a heathen wants to buy a car, all they do is go and pay for it. But when a Christian wants to get a car, they pray for hours and hours. Now, if we are to go by the scripture that Reverend shared, if God has given us the ability to reproduce, to multiply, to subdue, and to have dominion, then why are we praying over things that we've already been equipped with? So when you look at the Bible, it's a proper description of how enterprises ought to be run, how we ought to be successful. And with most of Africa being Christian, why is it that we do not have that dominance when it comes to enterprises and businesses? So to the Christians, being involved in enterprises is not evil. It is actually a good thing. So that's what I would leave as my parting shot. Let's move beyond the praying and actually practice what the Word of God says. So in order to register, you can contact 077 888 9444. I'll repeat it, 077 888 9444.
Well, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. That is Dr. Emmanuel Deituni, who happens to be the president, Human Capital International. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoy your stay. And of course, Dr. Fiona Mulira, who is the senior lecturer, Makeo University Business School. Thank you so much for your time. And Canon Reverend Aaron Mwesije, Director for Ethics in charge of Religious Affairs, Office of the President. Thank you so much. Every morning I wake up, I make a simple prayer. Bless the works of my hands. That's my prayer. Amen. So, and I believe in this summit, there's so much you will learn, because I believe the Bible is very clear. I'll bless the works of your hands. How do I get to know that and multiply? God bless you. See you tomorrow.
Amen. Powerful. Robert, you're a blessing.
Thank you.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.